Hey people, welcome back to the Slight Sarcasm Podcast. I'm Celeste.
I'm Amber.
And welcome back to our show. I don't know, I still don't have like a great way to transition.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you're never ready for the episode to start. You're just like, and okay, we're really doing this. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, it's authentic. It is real.
I agree.
LOL. Anyway, how is your weekend? Or your week? We're in the weekend.
It has been a long week. Long week.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm kind of... Things are coming to a head at work for me. I'm transitioning on some things and moving around some projects. So I've got a lot of new stuff that I'm responsible for. And so I'm just trying to get adjusted to all the new stuff that's coming in and deal with some of the old stuff that I still have to close out. And yeah, it's just been a lot of work. And I actually, after we record this, I'm going to take a nap and then get up and work still. And it's Sunday, so you know it's bad if I have to work on a Sunday.
Yeah, dang.
But it's okay. How about you? How was your week?
I don't remember what happened this week, to be totally honest. Once again, we're in the middle of a panini press still. So I just all the days are the same. All the weeks are the same.
Yeah, now it's too cold to go outside. So
yeah,
it's too cold to go outside.
Dark.
So I've just been in here.
Yeah, same. It's been dark. It's been snowing. Right now it's like, it was like flurrying this morning. Like, so, which I love snow, but it's just so dark.
I know you were so excited to tell me about the snow last week, and now you're like, all right, fuck this snow. It's too cold and dark.
Yes. So,
I feel ya.
I don't even know what happened this week, to be totally honest. I swear I hit Monday and Tuesday happened, which is like the days I have class. And then after that, I swear like Wednesday, I thought it was Thursday and it wasn't. And I was very upset about that. Like the whole day. Pretty much, yeah. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, that's how my week was. It's just same old. After I finish recording this episode, I have to go back and I have some schoolwork to do. I'm in a drawing class, and that class makes me so uncomfortable, man. It's testing everything about my life. Like, it makes me so uncomfortable because I think it's the OCD or like anxiety. It brings out a lot of that because I always want things to be perfect.
Yeah.
And when it comes to drawing, it is very easy to be like, oh, I want this to be perfect. And so that's got me like on 10. And then it prevents me from actually doing the work because I want it to be perfect, but I can't draw. But I'm trying to learn how to draw, but I have these assignments to do, but I want the drawing to be perfect. And it's just, I'm just spiraling, and I have to really like psych myself out of it and be like, okay, you have to get to a point where you have to actually put pencil to paper. And so that's what I've been doing. I did that yesterday. And I have to do that today because my assignment's due tomorrow. So, yeah.
You got it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's it's kind of the point of like, what is it? It's like an intro class or...
Yeah, it's like drawing one.
That's kind of the point, though. You have to test out all these different things, see what your strengths are, see what new things it really interest you, and I don't know, maybe you'll like some sort of I don't know, what would they call it, a drawing strategy or like a technique, I guess. Maybe you'll end up preferring a specific technique and kind of run with it from there. But it's good that you're trying all this new stuff. I mean, I know you don't really have a choice because you have to take some of these classes, but
yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a nice break from doing CAD stuff all the time, like being on the computer, working in a program, all that stuff. It's a nice departure from that, which I'm really, really liking
Good.
because, yeah, it's just a nice break, yeah. But yeah. Okay, well, let's transition into our main topic today, which we're. I don't know what title I'm gonna give this,
Mm-hmm.
but it's we're gonna be talking about personal finance. We're gonna so last year so last year we did an episode called Racism in Finance or in Personal Finance. And you should definitely go listen to that before you listen to this episode. That's kind of like an intro to like us talking about finance. That's something that Amber and I, well, a lot Amber, but I'm also very interested in personal finance,
I love it.
obviously,
Yeah.
because I make money. Um, and I think it's important for Black millennials, young people to be talking about finance because 9 times out of 10, we're the people who don't make any money. And so when we do make money, I think it's important for us to know what to do with it, how to do stuff with it, and, you know, elevate our situations as much as we possibly can. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
agreed. Yeah.
So,
There, I mean,
yeah.
just to kind of piggyback off of that, I feel like when we do see, and this might be a point that I brought up in our last episode when we were talking about this stuff, but I feel like we, through like social media and TV and movies and things like that, when we see successful Black people, it feels unattainable because I think because there's a gap. It's like you have average people like us who aren't really making that much money, and even if we are, it's not we're not seeing people who are just wealthy, right? We're not seeing a lot of like good representation of wealthy Black people. And so when we do see them, they're like superstars. You think about like Beyonce and Jay-Z and actresses and actors and things like that, where they have like this crazy like almost like unimaginable amounts of money. But we're also not seeing people who are just well off, who maybe are millionaires, but like they call them like secret millionaires, where it's like you don't really know their financial situation, you just know that they're well off. But I just feel like we don't really see a lot of that. So for us, for average people, or even people who don't have any money, it's hard to feel like that's something that you can achieve when the only representation that you see of it is like these people who are like way up on the top. you know I guess that's just my
Yeah.
like main thought.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is, I mean, we all know there's like a class gap between the rich and the poor. And I agree, a lot of the Black people that we see in our community that have money are like rich beyond
Yeah.
a lot of ours like wildest dreams. We don't see like the wealthy people or people who are just like doing well for
Mm-hmm,
themselves.
mm-hmm.
It's usually just people who are like super rich. You know what? We don't see a lot of people who are doing well for themselves that are content.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
I feel like I mean, because we live in a capitalist society, we're constantly bombarded with images of people who are doing well but constantly want more. And not to say that wanting more is like a bad thing, but there are people out there who are doing well for themselves and are content. They just want to be that way, and that's fine as well. So I feel like a lot of times we don't see a middle ground of like poor, the middle ground of like, the classes.
Yeah, and I think
So
another
yeah.
thing too is I think when you think of those people that I'm referring to, like those secret millionaires, or those people who you realize they're well off and they're wealthy, but they're not like ridiculously rich. Like I typically, when I think of people in that kind of like subgroup. I think of like doctors and lawyers and, you know, business owners and those sort of people. But again, we're underrepresented. We don't really see a lot of successful Black business owners. We don't really see a lot of successful Black doctors and lawyers and, you know, those sort of people who, again, you know, they have that like obtainable level of wealth and success, but you know, it's just lacking, and I think that just keeps a lot of people down because it feels like it's not obtainable, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I'm 100% agree. All right, so I have some questions. This is gonna be more of like a background. So this is still like an intro to in this is still like, I don't want to say intro, but we're not getting into the nitty gritty this
Mm-hmm.
episode. So maybe in the next episode that we talk about finance, we'll get into more details. But
Sure.
over time, when we talk more about this stuff, we'll share more details about what we do and things that we know and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so today we're just gonna answer like some question, like 4 questions that I have to like get us to talk about starting talking about more about personal finance. I said that weird, but okay. Anyway, um, what was your relationship to money growing up? I will preface this question by saying that I'm pretty sure I've heard the financial diet ask this question to its guests. So if it sounds familiar, that is probably where I got it from. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't watched the financial diet channel in a very long time, but I'm pretty sure that's where I got the question from. So no one try to come for me. But yeah, what was your relationship to money growing up?
Okay, good question. I think growing up, you know, obviously we're very influenced by what we see our parents and our family do. And with my family, I mean, we were, and I know we've kind of touched on this before in other episodes, different topics, but you know, we were pretty middle class. We had some issues with things like my parents were unemployed at different times, and you know, things like with the, you know, financial crisis and the recession, and you know, the like 2008 2009, that was a really difficult time. And um you know, okay, so I will say my my parents used to be good with money, and when they were in the Air Force together, they even had like an investing club, and they were doing all these things and, you know, taking advantage of their benefits as, you know, enlisted servicemen and women. And you know, they were doing good. And this is just you know, what I've heard them talk about in the past. But I think once they had kids, that kind of shifted. And you know, obviously their priorities shifted, and you know, they got out of the Air Force and they went into normal civilian work. And you know, I think that just changed things up for them. So when I was growing up, I noticed it was a lot of you know, we would spend money on things, but it wouldn't ever be without you could tell when we had money, when we didn't have money. Like when my mom and dad's paychecks were good, and you know, we had extra money left over. And then you could also tell when we were just like, you know, paycheck to paycheck. And so that was really reflected, I think, in where we lived. And so like when I was a baby and like my first few years of my life, my parents had built their own home, and we lived there until I was about 4. And things were good then. They were like fresh out of the military. They had really good jobs, or they were in the process of transitioning out of the military. But they had really good jobs and good prospects. But I don't exactly remember why, but we ended up moving from Virginia to Florida. And I think the main reason was because my parents they were like heavy IT people, and I think something brought them to back to Florida. And it, you know, it's probably like family, because my family's from there. But anyway, so when we moved down there, things like pretty much immediately got more difficult. And I just remember, we were renting from a family member, and you could tell like my parents were like arguing more and they were stressed more, and it wasn't really fun. And then again, like the cycle would repeat. Like we would go through these tough times where things were really stressful and it was obvious we didn't have any money. And then we'd be doing good, and like my parents would move to a new house, or we would all of a sudden like our Christmases would be better and more extravagant or whatever. But it kind of just like ebbed and flowed, and I think that really it kind of just created this thought where I felt like I could never really keep up with how they were feeling about things. Like it felt like when we didn't have money, it was like overnight. Like we just didn't have money. And so things would just kind of get upended, and, we would move from like a big house to a small apartment, and that happened a few times. And, or like, my dad would sell off a bunch of stuff, and, things like that would happen. And so I think, once I went into my teenage years and I started working and making my own money, I started spending just like they did. If I was making money, like my summer jobs and stuff like that, but if I was making money and I had good paychecks, I would be spending that shit. I'd be like, oh, I got to catch up with all the stuff I wanted to buy when I didn't have any money. I would do the same thing. And it was very obvious to see that it was just a reflection of what I saw growing up. So if I had money, I would spend it. And if I didn't have money, I would be miserable and, down and whatever. But it pretty much mimicked what I saw my parents do, I think. So that's my long-winded answer.
No, you're good. You're good. That was really good. Oh man, yeah. I feel the same. I had this very like similar experiences to you. Was I would say, yeah, I'm pretty sure I was poor growing up. I lived in a single parent home for the first 8 years of my life. Granted, like I was around family, though, so it wasn't just me and the parent that raised me, but I had like other family members to help out, so I didn't feel so I didn't feel poor, but we definitely were. And it was, I agree with you. Like it would always fluctuate. We'd move around every couple years for whatever reason. Money was tight or money was good, or I'm from New York originally, so I just lived in a lot of apartments. I never lived in a house until we moved to Virginia. So there's that. But also like New York real estate is just expensive as hell. So, but yeah, I remember one time, it's funny because like something that I wish happened growing up was that my parents were a bit more honest with me about what was going on versus just pretending like I didn't see what was happening because I have eyes. Like so yeah, like I remember one time we literally lived in someone's basement, and like our stuff was just like everywhere in that person's basement. And I remember I don't think I'll ever forget this. I remember I like had lost my tooth, and I like totally believed in the tooth fairy back then. Sorry to any children that listen to this podcast. I put my tooth under my pillow, and I like woke up, and I think there was like maybe $10 or $20 or something like that, or maybe $5. I don't remember. There was money underneath my pillow, and instead of keeping it, I gave it to my dad.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And when I like got a little older, I realized that he's the one who I gave him his money back. So it was like kind of funny, but like also like I don't know, that's just like very like clearly, like, I understood what was going on in the situation, and I decided instead of keeping this money, I would give it to someone who needed it more than me. And that is so, like, that's like a very good example of, like, you know, kids just like know what's going on, like they really do. And like every time I start thinking about it, it makes me want to cry because it was
Yeah.
bad.
You
But
wow, you totally just unlocked a very similar thing for me too. Um
yeah.
no, I'll tell you when you finish, but wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will say, yeah, so growing up, like, I understood that there wasn't a lot of money, and so um I'm pretty sure I was a kid and I would ask for stuff and things like that, but after a while, especially when I became like a preteen, teenager, I stopped asking for stuff because usually the answer was no, but that's for other reasons. And well, money, well, there was no money, but I stopped asking for other reasons. And then yeah, also I just felt bad. Like, so we moved to Virginia, and we pretty much moved to Virginia with nothing. We like still like I we still didn't have anything, but um you know, my parents got steady jobs and, you know, really wanted to start building their careers. And my stepmom went back to school and got a degree, and now, you know, got a job and stuff like that. And I do remember the 2008 2009 recession or whatever, and my dad actually got fired from his job in like 2008. And but they had been diligently saving. And um one thing about, so sorry, before 2008, like from the time we moved to Virginia to 2008, my parents had been diligently saving and being very like frugal. And they also had like my brother, um and very resourceful about like their money, and like really trying to save up money and stuff like that.
Mm.
And you know, they were like trying to get their money together, and stuff like that. But I honestly don't remember anyone really teaching me anything. I remember like anytime I had money, like either my parents gave me money for something, or I got money for birthdays or Christmas or something like that, I would always get ridiculed for spending it and not saving
Hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And it never made me want to save it. It just made me want to spend it more. Because I was just like, well, you're not teaching me how to save it. You're not helping me set up a bank account. You're not like saying, hey, like, how about we save like half of this money and we'll put it in this account, and so that and this is how like a savings account works, where like you put money into it, it has, you know, you get some interest in it and the money grows. Like, there wasn't a lot of that going on. It was more so like, oh, you have money and you just blew it on candy or whatever that you wanted, so you're stupid. And it's like, I don't know what else to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought money was to buy goods.
Yeah.
Like, you use money to buy stuff that you want. How come I can't do that with
Right.
my own money?
Yeah.
So I didn't really know, like, I didn't really like do anything with my money. And yeah, so any, like you, like any money that I got, it was automatically spent on food, mostly food, because
Same.
candy is good. So, but yeah, or like just random stuff that I wanted. But any money that I got, it was automatically spent. And yeah, so I feel like, yeah, that was my relationship to money. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at
Mm-hmm.
all. Like, I pretty much had no relationship to money because I
Yeah.
spent it as fast as I got it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I think my understanding was if you have it, you can use it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really I understood that you could save it for, something else, but I didn't have anything that I wanted that would require saving up for. And maybe it
Yeah.
was like, a pair of shoes that I really wanted or something, but yeah, I saved up for a couple weeks and I have my money to spend on my, $60 item or whatever. I never had like lofty savings goals because I felt like I didn't need anything that was lofty. And I think that's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of, my parents were good in the sense where they, obviously they made sure I had everything I needed, but
Mm-hmm.
they went out of their way for
Same.
sure.
Yeah.
I noticed they went out of their way to get me, these high ticket things that I would want. Maybe I'd have to wait, a few months for it or whatever, but I didn't have to sacrifice a lot of my own money for that type of stuff. But I did want to go back to the tooth fairy thing because I just remembered something similar happened to me, and I think I was probably about 7. I think it was 7. Right at the age where you're just starting to drop like your first, few teeth or whatever. I was probably like
Mm-hmm.
6 or 7, but I lost. I think this was my very first tooth that I lost. So I lost my tooth. I put it under my pillow, and that just happened to be the same night that my grandma brought her dog to stay with us. And so we were like getting used to having a dog in the house. We didn't have pets, prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting used to having the dog in the house, and I wanted the dog to sleep in my bed in my room so badly. So I left my door open, and I at some point I think I woke up and saw her kind of like walking around the house or whatever. But when I woke up in the morning, my tooth was gone. I had $7, and I remember I looked at that and I cried and cried and cried. And my parents were like, why are you crying? It's your money. You deserve it because you lost your tooth. Blah, blah blah. And I just remember like sobbing, and I told them like I felt guilty because I felt like the dog had come in while the tooth fairy was there and scared her into dropping more money under my pillow or something. And so
Oh.
I think I took like the $2 and I gave my parents the 5 back. And my mom was like, no, it's yours, keep it. I was like, I don't want it. And it was like blood money to me. So I got rid of
Oh,
it.
that's so.
But yeah,
How did you come up with
I
that?
don't
That's so.
know. Dude, I used to have these crazy vivid like dreams and stuff. But anyways, yeah, so I think I
That's so
saved
funny.
like the $2. I kept the $2. I was like, this is you could have this 5. I don't want it. I don't want it. I was like, I just would not take it. I think they ended up like, you know, giving it to me the next time I lost a tooth anyway. But this
Yeah.
is like that first
Oh.
part. But that was kind of the thing too. That I realized like when I was in college, I felt like when I had money, I felt guilty for having it. And I don't know where that's come from, but I think to this day I still feel a little bit of guilt when I have money in my account because I know that it's I think like I just think about how much money my parents have, shelled out over the decades for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I feel like I'm like indebted to them and I should be, paying them back for stuff like, like just random shit like my first car. Like I didn't buy that car. My parents bought it for me. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was like a used older car, but I didn't have to pay those thousands of dollars for it. So I can, I feel like I still feel really indebted to them. And I think that's my motivation, a lot of my motivation to have wealth is so that I can feel comfortable with providing for them and kind of like, paying them back after all these years. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally understandable. I think a lot of people, from what I've seen, a lot of people who are minorities or don't come from money, from what I've seen, this is just, yeah. Um, that, I've heard that story before. They feel indebted to their parents for making sacrifices for them, for doing a lot of things they they did. I will say though, like, you were a child, so whatever your parents did for you, that's what they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, even though, like, you know, your parents don't have to get you a car, they don't have to get you, like, the latest stuff, that's totally fine, but at the same time, like, it was their choice to have you, and it was their choice to give you those things, so I don't think, I mean, easier said than done to be, like, you know, don't feel indebted to them, because, you know, you feel the way you feel, but also, you know, don't let that, like, stop you from feeling good about the sacrifices that you've made to get where you are now. Because your parents made those sacrifices and their parents before them made those sacrifices so that you can be where you are right now and do the things that you do.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
yeah, so yeah. But I totally understand what you're saying, and I feel like a lot of people resonate with that. So yeah. Okay. So you did bring this up, but how did you navigate money in college?
Mm-hmm.
I'll start. I did not. And it was college was when I recognized that I did not know how to save at
Oh
all.
yeah, clearly.
Like
I don't think
like
anybody did.
I could not keep money in my bank account to save my life. Like,
Overdrafts out the ass for me.
yes. Yes. I should not be going to Chipotle, but I'm
But
going
I'm
to do
going
it
to spend
right
my
now.
last $8 on
Last
Chipotle.
$8 on fucking Chipotle. So, I could. So, if you're in college still, like, trust me, yeah, we've all been there. Like, I just could not. Overdraft fees up the ass. Like, overdraft fees should be illegal. They should be illegal, because why are you charging poor people for not having money? Why don't you just decline their card when they're there and be like, hey, like, I can't, you can't take the money out.
That's true. They've changed it up in
But
recent
whatever.
years, so it's not as bad. But I specifically remember one time I overdrafted, and it was like for every day you didn't clear the overdraft, they would tack on another like
Yes.
$40 or something. I had like -400 something dollars in my
Jesus
account.
Christ.
My mom was pissed, but again, she helped me out. She helped me pay it back, so I had like a positive $30 after all that. After I begged her to help me, but that was a lot of money to just just go literally to no one but the bank.
Yeah.
That
So
was a reality check.
So I got a job halfway through college, which my parents hated. Like, my parents were pissed that I got a job. But
My parents loved that. We had the same job, right? Yeah, we did the same stuff.
Yeah. But my parents wanted me to focus on education and not, like, having a job and, like, going to school. But I think that at the time that I got a job, I recognized that I think a part of me recognized that where I was not happy, and it wasn't going to set me free. And getting a job helped me achieve a lot of the things that I would go on to do. But I think so, and I just realized that, like, not that, like, school wasn't for me or anything, but I felt like having a job and having my own money would grant me a lot more freedoms than I had at that time that I had gotten my, I guess that was it was my second job, but, like, my first real job. But yeah, and even then, I mean, I will say I saved money. I worked enough and I saved enough money to, like, pay rent every month. I wasn't on time all the time. But and, like, to pay my bills and to, like, feed myself sometimes, but, like, other than that, like, I still wasn't great at money. But I will say I wasn't making, part of being able to be good at money is to also be able to make enough. And and I think when we say being good at money, we mean that people really mean that you're making enough money to have an excess. Like once you pay off all of your bills and stuff like that, you're not in the negative, you're not in the red, you're in the green.
And you're
And some of that
responsible.
money can go somewhere to help you do better. So that's what people mean when they say being good at money. I'm using air quotes, you can't see them. Um so at that time when I was in college, I wasn't, if I was in the green, it was maybe $20-$30.
Mm-hmm.
I was working part time, and then we had a cap with our job. Like we could only work up to a certain amount of hours a week.
Yeah.
And I think that number was between like 23,
It was
25
yeah, it was like
hours a
25
week.
hours, I think. I think that was like
And
and that was a lot for some people.
yes.
But
Yeah, and
myself
I was
and
hitting that
mhm,
every
I was
week.
gonna say, but myself and other people I know we were maxing that shit out all the time.
Yeah. And we weren't making much. We were making like 850,
Were we making?
825,
That's
something like
right.
that.
Yeah, because that was the thing. The thing that drew me to that job. Okay, we worked like campus security, so it wasn't
Yeah.
anything serious. We basically just did like resident hall, dorm housing security.
Yeah.
But I remember what specifically drew me to that job over all the other jobs on campus was it was the highest paying student
Yeah, it was
job,
the highest paying job.
and the
It was
hours were
the highest
so
paying
flexible.
job with the hours, because
Yes,
there were jobs that were paying like $10 an hour,
but
but
you could
you were
only
only
work
working
like
like 10 hours a week or
exactly,
something like that.
exactly.
So like the cost
Yeah,
versus hours, like it made the most sense,
yeah.
and it was like the most flexible because
It-
it was 24
right,
7.
right. So someone was always sitting at the desks and stuff. Because we went to school in the city, so you had to have some sort of
Yeah.
eyes on who's coming in and out at any time of day. But yeah, I remember that was what drew me into it. Was one, I could make a lot of money, and two, the hours were flexible, so I would just work overnights, and that was
Same.
when I did my studying and did my schoolwork and stuff, and yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was good, but it's still, I mean, it's still a student job, and you still have all this other stuff that you're responsible for, so it really wasn't that much money.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah. So so yeah, that's how I navigated money in college. I didn't at all whatsoever. I don't Yeah, I don't know how I survived. I mean, meal plans, but that was part of my tuition, so
Yeah.
my parents paid for that. But yeah. Yeah, how about you?
So I will say my freshman and maybe like most of my sophomore year, I was in the same boat. I did not watch my spending. I was maxing shit out to, go to Chipotle or go out with friends or, you know, just buy clothes that I didn't even wear and shit like that. But I think a catalyst for me, apart from like that incident with the overdraft thing where I was like, oh my god, this is just, I gotta stop overdrafting my account just because, like the other thing I think that really helped me was my roommate, my sophomore year. She was, and she still is, she's extremely good with money. And I know she's probably like, I know she listens to this stuff, so shout out to her. I'm not gonna mention her name just in case she didn't want me to, but yeah, she's excellent with money, and I just learned so much from her because she was like the most responsible person I knew at the time. And so I would see her, she would, she'd have her money and she'd do her schoolwork and everything like that. But she was always buying like cheap food, stuff that didn't take a lot of money to buy. It didn't take very long to cook. She could eat it and not get bored of it. Like she was doing that stuff. And so I was watching her. But, then I would go to the store and like have her in mind and like, oh, what would she do? And then I'd end up
Mhm.
like, buying whatever. But I also figured out like I could use coupons and that takes the price down. I could, start using these loyalty programs where, especially with a college campus, they always have deals going on where it's like, oh, you come to this restaurant 3 times this month and you get a
Mhm.
free whatever the hell. And so, I was like started taking advantage of that stuff, not just from the, you know, whimsicalness of it, but from the like this is actually useful and I'm actually saving money, you know. So it'd be like, you know, if my friends wanted to go out, I might recommend that place over another place, or you know, if we went out, I would get a water. And I think that was, you know, stuff that's pretty common in college. Like you find these little tweaks here and there that you can do that don't really hurt you that bad, but they make a huge difference. Like not ordering soda when I went out, because you know, we couldn't drink it anyway. We were, you know, young and under 21. So we couldn't drink anyway. So it's not like you're going to go and get a drink at the bar or whatever. But
we couldn't drink legally.
We couldn't drink legally. But, you know, but yeah, if you order water, like it's, who cares if you don't have a fucking Pepsi? Like, that's not like a deal breaker for a good meal or whatever. And so apart from that, you know, like Celeste was saying, we had these jobs that we were, you know, maxing our hours out, because one, it's like, okay, well, if I don't have anything to do on a Wednesday afternoon, I'm gonna go to work, because that's something for me to do, and I'm making money for, you know, what I'm doing. So, you know, I was maxing that out. And when I got to my senior year, after I lived with Celeste, I moved off campus, and I had my own place, but I had my own bills. So I remember my studio was like, now thinking back, I'm like, I can't believe I paid that much for my shitty ass, like 300 square foot studio. But I remember my studio was $750 a month, all utilities included. And the money I made from work was like just barely enough for me to pay my bills and then get groceries and, you know, take care of all the other stuff. So I actually started, I started my own little mini business, and I was buying and selling stuff. So I would like buy stuff in the stores and then sell it online and make a profit. And that was really what kept me going, was like, because I realized, you know, a couple months into my, you know, living off campus, I realized I would have to call my parents and ask for help with bills. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that anymore, because I felt like they'd already helped me enough. And you know, if I wanted to be on my own and be self-sufficient, I can't ask them to, you know, lend me $100 every freaking 2 weeks so I can pay some sort of bill I forgot about. So, you know, I started grinding. I really, I don't know, I guess I just really started to realize the value of having your own money and being able to take care of your own stuff without, you know, bothering other people with it. But yeah, it took me until I was like 20 to realize that it's important to not max out your you know, account, and not overdraft, and not, you know, spend money on stuff that's not gonna matter 2 days from now anyway. So you know, I started doing other things, like if I was gonna order something from Amazon, I'd let it sit in my cart for a couple days so that I wouldn't impulse buy all the time. Or you know, if we were you know, my friends and I were trying to figure out something to do, and they're like, oh, let's go shopping, blah, blah. You know, I'd say, no, let's stay here and, you know, do something free, or like do something on campus because it was free or cheap or whatever. Or, you know, if we had parties and stuff, like we would get like bottom shelf shitty liquor instead of, you know, because there's always someone who's like, oh, if we all put in $10, we can get a bottle of whatever the fuck. Like, no, if we all put in $10, we can all get 10 different bottles of, you know, whatever. Yeah, so, and I know that doesn't really...
Burnett's.
Yeah. Burnett's. Oh, God, don't talk to me about that right now.
Yeah.
Burnett's is like, you know, you see like bottom shelf liquor and it's like super cheap. Burnett's is below the bottom shelf. That's like dust. You know what's
below Burnett's? Pinnacle. Pinnacle is trash.
No way.
Yes.
No, Aristocrat.
Pinnacle's absolutely disgusting.
Aristocrat is on that low shelf too.
I don't think I ever had.
Ooh, if you ever want to know what rubbing alcohol tastes like, you can drink Aristocrat vodka.
Well, I've had Everclear, so there's that.
Ooh.
But
hey, that's another that's another alcohol hack though. If you gotta stretch what you gotta get some Everclear. It goes a long way.
Okay, well, Everclear is illegal in certain states.
That's true. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway. Yeah. That was good. No, I love that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I will say, yeah, I agree that when it comes to when I moved out on my own senior year, as well. I yeah, it was I never asked. Since I've been living on my own since like 2011, I asked my parents for money once.
Mm-hmm.
And I really when I got my job and I knew my parents were pissed about it, I made it a point, because they were pissed about it, I made it a point to be like, I will never ask them for money, because they already don't like the fact that I did this, and they already don't like the fact that I got a job. And then I told my parents that I was moving off campus, and they didn't like that either. They didn't like that either. And when I found a place, like, I remember my dad coming in because he wanted to see the place that I was living in, because it was my first time, like, you know. And then I also lived in a house with all guys, so there was that as well. I didn't tell him all that, but but I was like, there's a room and a house, and but it was also the only place I could find that they weren't going to be guarantors. And so I had to find, if I was going to live on my own, I had to find a place that would let me not have a guarantor. So that was kind of like the only place. And I kind of had to work with what I got. I wasn't scared, but I think my dad was scared for me. And I remember he came to the house and it was like, he did not look happy. But I think I think once he like saw the room and he saw like I had my own bathroom and stuff like that, and he realized that like I was doing this regardless of like how he felt about it. And so he actually bought my first like bed.
Oh, nice.
So and
that's good.
And so I think after that he recognized that like, okay, like she's actually gonna do this, and if I don't support her, then what's
she's
the
still
point?
Gonna do it.
So but no, I 100% agree. That year was hard. That year was like a very like punch you in the face, like, oh yeah, you really got you got to get your shit together about money. Okay. My next question is, was there an event that changed how you deal with money now?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot this was one of the questions. I guess I kind of jumped the gun on that one.
No, you're good.
Did you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll go. So the job that I have currently is like my first big girl job. Like my first like career job, I guess. And I remember I was like, at the time that I started the job, I was obviously making like the most money I'd ever made. And I was like, wow, like this is so much money. I can start doing the one thing that I've been really wanting to do, which is travel. And I remember I came to visit you. That was like my first trip ever.
Oh shit, was it really?
Like by myself. Well, I'd been to New York once by myself, but I don't count that because that's family. But yeah, that was like my first trip. Actually, no, I lied, because I'd been to like Myrtle Beach and stuff like that.
You've done
without
like regional,
like my parents and stuff.
Regional stuff, like close by, a few hours away.
Yeah, but it was my first trip in this new job, and I went to go visit Amber with some friends, and that was great. And then I went to Mardi Gras a few months later, and I don't think I've ever talked about this, but I did not budget for that trip at all. Like, it was bad. Like it was bad. Like, I did not budget.
Or your spending was bad.
Both. Damn. Well, the trip wasn't bad.
Okay.
But my spending was bad for that trip. Like, I spent all my money. Like, I went on that trip and I had like practically $0. Like, I had to borrow money from someone,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
so I could like eat. Like that's how bad it was. And I was miserable like the rest of I was kind of
Yeah.
miserable,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was bringing the other person I went on the trip down because I wasn't willing to spend money because I didn't have it, and I didn't like tell them like my situation and what was going on, and so I just felt really bad the entire trip. And I felt bad for them because because I wasn't being honest, and it was just really like
Tense. Yeah.
the I will say like there were definitely parts of the trip that like I loved and enjoyed, and it will always be a very fond memory, but because of the money thing, it like really brought the trip down for me, and I felt so bad because I felt like I was bringing this other person down, and I was like I never ever want to do that ever again, like never ever. I never want to be in that situation. I was like so pissed at myself because I was like, I'm making more money now than I was before, and I'm still in the same situation in which I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, there is something wrong. And I was like, I gotta figure this shit out. And money was scary to me still. Like, I wasn't really like checking for what was coming in and what was going out for real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I knew what was coming in, but like going out, I was like, I don't want to like really think about that all the
Yeah.
time. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
spend the money, blah blah blah, whatever, haha, everything's okay. And like after that trip, I was like, no, I cannot be doing this anymore. Like this is I never want to be back in this place. I never want to feel this again. And I have never done that ever again, and I like really started to get my shit together. And it's that same year, I think like this Mardi Gras, it was like February, March, April. So like in 4 months, I saved up enough money to okay, so we went to Mardi Gras, and then 4 months later, we went to Las Vegas for my 24th birthday, and um I obviously like I paid for like my hotel. I was able to pay for like all my food and stuff. I actually saved up enough money for me and like 6 to 7 other people to eat at a really nice restaurant, and um f- I paid for their meal, like it was like a package. I paid for the meal, and then later we
Nice.
went to like the club, and we had like a section, and we had a
Oh, fancy
bottle, like
Wallet.
like, and I saved, and that was because I literally like I decide that was the event. I decided I was
Yeah.
like, you know
Yeah.
what? I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm making money now. Like, why am I still in the same place I was when I wasn't making any money? Like, something is wrong. And so, as the kids say, I got my ish together, and I started really breaking my fear of money and looking at how money works, and looking at my finances, and looking at what was in and what's coming in, and what like what's going out. And I'm not perfect today, but I have a better relationship with looking at the math and doing the math and feeling confident and
Yeah.
comfortable in
Yeah.
that, and stuff like that. So yeah, but that was the event that like that that changed. I wonder, I don't know if the person who I went on that trip with is going to listen to this episode, but I'm so sorry to you.
Oh.
And you probably now know why I was acting like so.
Mm.
I was just acting that way when I was on that trip. I actually still have never told them, but if they listen to this episode, they will hear it. But yeah, so yeah. What about you?
Yeah. No, I actually had a similar thing happen. Twice, I think. With trips. So my first my first trip, or like travel venture on my own was actually out of the country because I'm crazy. And I thought that would be a great idea. So what I did was I I was putting aside money for my job, and I like had got some money for Christmas, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. This will help me, get afford my trip, right? And so what happened was I remember I had like this lull in my classes, like, and this was, I think, I want to say it was like January, like mid-January, and there, for some reason it was, it was just like kind of like that slump that happens when you come back from classes or come back from break, and there's not a lot of stuff going on. So I thought it would be a good time to go. I'm trying to remember if this was January or March. When was this? No, it was March.
This for your birthday?
I went in March.
Around your birthday?
Yeah, that's right. My first trip I went in March. And it was because my friend's birthday is also pretty close to mine. I remember this now. Okay, so yeah, I had saved my Christmas money, and there was like the lull, and I think the lull was probably because it was like spring break, and I'm just blanking on my whatever happened. But anyways, I booked a ticket to Scotland. I wanted to fly to visit my friend because she was living in and studying in Scotland. And I booked the ticket, and I told my parents after I had already paid for it. And I was like, oh, too late. You can't tell me I can't go because I'm not getting a refund, And it was, that trip was fun, but the problem was I didn't budget enough. I didn't realize that I was probably going to run out of money very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. I was there for like 10 days. And so a few things happened that really kind of jacked things up. And this was stuff, again, it's like, now I know, and now I do that. Now I plan for this type of stuff. But I didn't realize all the stuff that could go wrong. And so the major thing that went wrong that should have told me from the start this trip was not going to go the way I wanted it to was I missed my flight because I booked it. I'm just saying this out loud now makes me feel like the biggest idiot. But okay, we were in school in Virginia, and instead of me flying out of Virginia or like the DC area, I booked my ticket to fly out of JFK in New York because it was like $300 cheaper than booking it from somewhere where I could actually just get to it in a couple hours. And so what happened was I went home, I had like spent the night at my parents' house, and then I had my dad drive me to the Amtrak in DC. I got on the Amtrak with my shit, and this just happened to be the same day of this massive snowstorm that like was like once in a decade. Doesn't happen in Virginia, but it dumped like 2 feet of snow or something crazy like that. They called it fucking Snowmageddon. Like, I should have known that this was just gonna be bad. So I get on this train, this Amtrak, and I'm doing good, I'm doing okay. Like, got there on time, got on the train. As soon as we leave from DC to get up to New York, the conductor comes on, he's like, hey, we gotta run at half power. There's too much snow, we can't max all our stuff out, so everything is gonna be a lot slower. You gotta expect delays. And I'm like, fuck. So we get to New York, and I get to New York. They drop us off like in New York, and I still have to get to JFK, and my flight is like an hour from when my train finally pulled in.
You got dropped off in Manhattan?
I got dropped off at where was it?
Penn Station.
Yes, Penn Station. So
Manhattan.
Get off the train, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to figure. This whole time, like all this crap has been happening. So this trip that was supposed to take like 4 or 5 hours on the train took like 7.5, almost 8 hours, and that was all of my extra time that I was gonna use to get to the airport and check in and blah blah blah. So I'm fighting my way through all this stuff. I get on the train, I get to the airport. Literally, I get there, and I was so late that the gate, like the check-in counter was closed. Like, they had already closed all that stuff up because it was the last flight for this airline for the day. They had already closed it. There was nobody there. I couldn't even check in. I missed the flight. I got to the airport, and I think the flight took off like 20 minutes after I got there. So I was like super late. So that was something shitty that happened. So I called my parents. I'm like crying, like, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. My parents were like, well, I guess you should just come home, because I remember I was like bragging to them, like, oh, I got this ticket and I'm not refunding it. I'm taking this flight. So what happened was I Ended up staying in a hotel, and this hotel in itself, this was like strike number 2 for me. This hotel was so sketchy, like the door to my room didn't even lock. And so I pushed the dresser in front of the door. And I was staying in this like shitty hotel in Queens, like a Howard Johnson, like crappy hotel. But I woke up the next morning and my parents had called me and they said, "Hey, we'll buy you a ticket. Like this, we bought you another ticket. It's gonna leave at noon. Like just get back to the airport, get there early, don't fuck around, blah blah blah." So I'm like, thank you. So obviously I owed them for that and I had to pay them back. But I get on there, I get the flight, everything's fine. I land in London, transfer, fly up to Edinburgh. My friend picks me up. We go to the baggage claim. My freaking bags aren't there. They left my shit and they left my bags in New York. So I didn't have luggage for like 3 days. I didn't have any of my clothes or anything. I just had what I had in my backpack, which luckily was like toothpaste, toothbrush, and like medication and stuff like that. So I didn't have any of my shit. So I'm walking around the same clothes I've been wearing. So I had to buy new clothes. That was more money coming out of my account. And like all this shit had happened, right? And so we get through like the first full week of my trip. And then I realized like I don't have any fucking money left. And I'm not trying to ask my friend to buy all my shit for me because she also, is not flush with cash. So I spent the whole trip. We spent the whole trip just bumming it. And we were trying to do all this stuff that was like super cheap and, didn't cost a lot of money. And, we would like take public transportation and then get lost and have to walk back because we didn't have enough money to get back. And, just like stupid shit like that I wish we had just done a better job for. But that really like, well, on the plus side, it gave me the travel bug because I loved that trip. But on the downside, I was like, I'm never doing this shit again because it was embarrassing more than anything. It's just embarrassing not having money. So I think that was like a really big catalyst for me. And I feel like that whole story was just like someone listening is just like, wow, what an idiot. But like, really, I was so desperate to go on this trip that I was willing to literally bankrupt myself.
Yeah, but I think, but obviously, like, you learned a lot from that. I think in both stories, like, we both learned a lot from, and in both of those stories, we both could have just been like, fuck traveling, like, this is too much work, this is too much of a hassle, like, I can't believe I lost out on so much money, or blah, 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 or, like, that could have totally just been the end for us, but we decided to just do better and be better for that reason. And I feel like that outweighs a lot of the negatives or the bad things that had happened, because at the end of the day, like, even though, like, those things happen, there were so many good memories that I had from that trip and that you had from that trip, the trip that you took. And like, I don't think it was, I personally don't think anything that you did was stupid or dumb or whatever. You just didn't know. You just didn't know. It was your first experience and you didn't know. I mean, I personally know that you shouldn't be taking no goddamn Amtrak to New York, but I'm also from New York and I travel. So, like, so I know that because I have that kind of experience, but you just didn't. So you just didn't know, and you thought, I'm pretty sure the Amtrak was just, one of the cheapest things, or maybe you just wanted to ride the train. How could you know that, like, Snowmageddon was coming, like, 2-3 months before you booked your ticket or whatever, like, so, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm, like, too optimistic or whatever, but that's just, like, things that, sometimes shit just happens, and I think because we grew from that, I think that's really great, and, I don't think it's dumb or stupid or whatever, like, it feels like that feeling of embarrassment and stuff like that, like, that sucks, and sometimes, that stays with you, but I feel like now we can look back and be like, damn, like, and just kind of
I
laugh
know.
and be like, man, like, I'm glad I grew from that because I take better trips now. I do better planning, you
Yeah,
know.
my friend and I
Yeah.
laugh about that shit all the time because she's like, "Oh, remember when we just ate pasta with pesto for like a week straight?" And it sucked too because we went shopping. We were like, okay, well, the easiest thing to do to save money or keep money so we can do stuff is to eat most of our meals at home or at her place. So we
Yeah.
went shopping a couple times and we went to like there's a store. If you've heard of Aldi, there's another like very discounted like
Liddy.
similar store called Lidl.
Lidl. Yeah.
And I remember we went there and we got like some pasta, we got pesto, we got like a bunch of basic cheap stuff, and we got these sausages because we were like, okay, well, we can mix things up and do some different things with that. I got fucking food poisoning. Like
Oh
I spent the last two
no.
days of the trip in bed like violently ill, and
Oh
it was just like
no.
kind of like the
Yeah.
closing of that shitty chapter. So while that was like one of the main things where I was like, I'm never doing this like this again. The other thing that I would say was like a positive was I discovered financial independence and retiring early, and I realized that it is absolutely doable, and anyone can set themselves up to be able to retire early and live off of whatever they've saved or accumulated and invested in and things like that. So that was like a positive thing where I was like, oh shit, I can do this, and that really helped me change the way I managed my money. I would say I think my mindset changed with that trip, but my tactics and my strategies for personal finance changed because I discovered the FIRE community, or the financial independence retiring early community.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Last question is, what are your money goals this year?
I got
And
you.
what's your plan of attack?
Okay, I'll go first because it's real short. My goals for this year, I want to be debt free, and I have a lot of money that I owe. I still have my student loans. I'm still paying that off. I have a car note that's almost done. I've been paying that off for a few years, and I have credit card debt that I have accumulated from traveling and being like, "Oh, I'm not going to run out of money if I just charge it." Like stupid shit that I didn't realize, but I'm basically still paying off shit that I did years ago. And whereas now I think I'm much better with my money. I'm still dealing with the bad decisions I made when I was in my early 20s. So, one of my goals is to be debt free very soon, but I think, unless some miracle happens, like I'm not gonna be able to pay off all the debt, but I would love to make a huge, huge dent in most of my stuff. Like if I could get my credit cards paid off and my car note paid off and I'm just left with my student loans or whatever, I'm happy. So, the best way for me to attack it obviously is to be very intentional with my savings. And I think one thing that I still spend a lot of money on is takeout food, and especially right now with quarantine, where that's the one way you can mix things up pretty easily is by having somebody else
Yeah.
cook food for you for a change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I will say, since we moved and we've been in this new place, even though we're really close to a lot of great restaurants, we're really not going out that much. We're really not I wouldn't say going out, but we're really not ordering out much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy about that because it's like, well, we kind of committed, like, okay, we're gonna try something new, like maybe like every other week. And for the most part, we've just been shopping and cooking, and it's been fine. Like I don't feel like sad about not having takeout food because I've noticed too, when we get takeout food, it's like almost like this graph where you get like super excited when your food gets there. You're like, oh my god, I can't wait to eat. And then like as you eat, you're like, this really isn't that good. Like you can feel
Aw.
the satisfaction just kind of like dropping off. You're like, this isn't really that good, or oh, it was cold, or oh, it's soggy, or oh, I paid too much for this, or oh, they fucked up my order. Like all this stuff happens, and it just totally like decreases your satisfaction, and then you end pretty much where you started, where you were like just as okay as you were before you ordered that food. So I realized like it's like that instant fix, but it never lasts enough to make it worth it. So I think that's one thing. It's like, whereas, maybe you spent like 2 hours cooking this really intricate meal and you ate it and it turned out really well. Like, that's something like, you kind of get like a high from that. Like, hey, that was great. And that's something you can talk about like for days after. It's like, oh, remember I did that meal and it was like really good. Like, you don't talk about some takeout food you had 3 days ago. No, nobody does that. But, so, little things like that we've been tweaking that I think will really help. That's the main thing, I think. I think I can save at least 10 grand by not ordering takeout as much as we currently do. So hopefully things go to plan.
Yeah. I agree. I will say I haven't been, especially since I've moved, I haven't been ordering out as much, but that's also because I live in a gentrified neighborhood, so there aren't a lot of like fancy restaurants near me or restaurants in general near me. So I can order to like my place, but it is kind of far and I just haven't felt the desire to do that too much. Like every once in a while I do, but I normally don't. I personally do not like cooking, so yeah, I don't know how I feed myself 90% of the time, but I do. So yeah. But I totally feel you. I've definitely saved up I've saved last year I pretty much went out to lunch for work every single day. I used to bring my lunch, but I was like, this is too much work. So I just started budgeting like me going out for lunch, and because it was just easier for me, and now I don't do that anymore, so I'm saving even more money. So yeah.
Good.
But I'm pretty sure if I have to go back into the office, I'm gonna start going back for lunch because
about to be hitting up all your old spots.
Yeah, because I just know me. I don't like preparing food. I don't like cooking.
I feel you. I don't like leftovers, and so anything that we cook, I try to just say, okay, well, we got one day of leftovers at most.
Yeah.
And whatever else is not there, it's just not gonna get eaten by me. Maybe my partner eats it, but not me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a huge fan of leftovers, but yeah. My money goals this year, I don't know. I think mostly just saving as much as I possibly can. That's kind of where I am. I will say I have a lot of privilege when it comes to money, in the sense that like I don't have any debt really. I have student loans, but I don't have any credit card debt.
Good.
I have a car note, but I'm not really worried about that. I will say I was, but I was talking to my parents about this, and they were pretty much like, cars are a depreciating asset. So like, because I was like, oh, like if I had like save up enough money like in the next year, so I kind of want to pay it down and like put a chunk of change towards that. And my parents were pretty much like, I don't know if that's like I don't know if that type of investment is worth your while, because cars are a depreciating value, and by time you would pay off your one, you'd probably most likely need a new one, or something could happen to it. Like they've seen, but also like one of my parents has like really bad car juju. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But I totally understand like what they're saying isn't wrong though. It is very possible that once you pay it down, like something may happen, or I have friends with bad car juju as well. So I've seen it all. So I think that's something that I'm starting not to worry about anymore as debt. Like, yes, it is, and I'll pay it every month and all that stuff. But I think I'm not going to be worrying about it too much anymore, and just focus on saving and figuring out what my next steps are with my money. I don't besides school is my next step.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever that takes me, I feel like that's most likely where my money is gonna go. So because I don't have a clear idea of what school is gonna be in the next year, because it's kind of going to be out of my hands in several months. So I don't know where my money is going per se, but my plan of attack is just saving as much as I possibly can, which is not a bad thing,
Good.
obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, and hopefully in like June I can start putting money back into my IRA accounts, because I had to stop because I am currently, I'm not in the negative, but I don't have a lot of surplus of money right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I had to
I
like
feel you.
cut back on that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still contributing to my 401k, but yeah, the IRAs I had to like take a step back from for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But yeah, so yeah, that was it for me. I don't have any other questions or anything like that. I think this was a good roundabout way to just dive a little bit deeper into like our history of finance and
Yeah.
understanding, like, you know, why you make certain money moves the way
Yeah.
you do. I feel that's extremely important, and the way you move your money is, and the way and how your relationship to your money is emotional. It's not
Definitely.
tactical, or you know, it's not robotic or anything like that. It's emotional, the way
It, yeah.
you work with your money. So if so you have to like build a good relationship. And I don't, you know, I think we both can say that we don't have like the relationship that we want with money right now,
Right.
but as you've heard, like obviously we've come a long way from like where we were back then to like where we are now, and that also comes with some privileges. We do both currently make more money than we did before,
Mm-hmm.
than we do now, so we have, you know, more means to do more things. But I think it's still important to, wherever you are, to try to have a better relationship with money, even if you're in the red. Like, try. It's nerve wracking. It's hard. It sucks to like sit down and go through like where what is everything and where everything is. But I will say, if you know what where everything is and what is up with your money, no one can come to you and tell you otherwise. And you at least know. And that way you can actually try to start to do something about it. Because if you don't know, then you're not going to attempt to get out of the situation that you're in. So yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I will say is I think it would make sense for us to have our next follow up personal finance episode very soon, because there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about that might help some of our listeners like just think about or consider different things. Like I was going to say, oh, you know, could you elaborate on what your IRA is and, you know, the difference between
Yeah.
an
Mm-hmm.
IRA account and a 401k? But I think you know, we might have some questions that we can answer very soon if we do you know, like a follow-up episode soon where we can kind of lay things out and make suggestions or talk a little bit more detail, like you mentioned, like what we're doing specifically,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like what you were saying, where like you got to at least know where your money's going, or you know what's coming in, where it's going, how it's going out, when it's going out. If you can
Mm-hmm.
start with that, that's like the base foundation. Is just being able to properly track your spending and you know earning, and then from there you can
Mm-hmm.
start delegating things. Like I've heard people refer to their money as like every dollar has a job, where you can say
Mm-hmm.
like okay, well, these $1,000 that I bring in, like this, $1,000 that I spend on rent, that's what my $1,000. There's 1,000 of my job dollars whose job it is to pay my rent. If that makes sense. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense, but we're like, okay, these $500 here, they're saving dollars. That's their job, is to go into my savings account every month or whatever. And if you think of it that way, it helps. And there's all these other like tricks where you're saying like it is very emotional. There's a lot of um things you can do to not just you know other people, but like trick yourself into making better choices. Like a lot of people will talk about paying yourself first. Like, what does that mean? Mentally, you give yourself a paycheck. This is your paycheck, where it's like, okay, maybe that's your spending for the month. Like when you get your paycheck, you're paying yourself $200 to you know do whatever with that money, or you're paying yourself $500 to put in your savings account. Like those sort of things we can talk about in detail soon. I think that could help a lot. So,
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I mean, tax season is upon us, so
oh yeah,
so yeah. So
that's some
that's
real
always fun.
adulting shit right there. You want to talk
Yeah.
about being an adult preparing
uh
for tax season? That's
jeez. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll move into our last segment called What's Got You Hot.
What's got you hot?
Um
I did think of something, and
go.
it's got me hot in a positive way.
Okay.
I was just talking to my partner about this like 2 days ago. We were listening to NPR, and I was like, you know what's great? I haven't heard Trump's voice in my fucking ear in like a month, and it's been amazing.
That's so funny.
Maybe not a month, but just like it feels like a month. It feels like decades ago that guy was fucking everywhere. Now he's sitting in his stupid resort in Florida, like sulking and preparing for his trials and stuff. But it's just been so nice to not, like, yeah, people are still talking about him. Obviously, he's got a lot of stuff that's still really relevant, but like not having to hear his stupid fake speeches and his like BS, and him talking shit about somebody. Like I feel so much more peaceful. And it's like having like Biden replace him, and having someone who actually talks about things with some substance is just so refreshing. Like, I know Biden's not everybody's first pick, but I'll take him over Trump, that's for sure. And so I'm happy in that sense. That's what's got me hot in a good way.
Yeah, I will say, yeah, the media isn't talking about him as much, and there isn't a frenzy, so I think that's
Yeah.
also part of like the reason why. Yeah. Yeah. What? Oh, okay. So what's got me hot is I was watching Kim from For Harriet, and I'm she did some video, and she was talking about how um she was talking about something. I don't remember what the video was about or discussion was, but she mentioned that someone had asked her about like how does she um keep her like private life private while like doing like the work that she does, cuz in some instances she does like share her life, and she was like, actually don't share as much. Pretty much what she was saying was like she doesn't share as much as people think she does. She selectively shares, and the key to that is oversharing on small things so that people think that they
Hmm.
know you, but
Hmm.
they actually don't know
Wow.
you, because it's like a false like security or whatever. And when she said that, I was like, I do that, but I do that. I didn't know I was doing that, and because I understand that like I am guarded, and I do have walls, but I feel like for in some situations it doesn't seem like I have walls because I overshare on little things about me that I don't
Hmm.
really care that people know. Like a lot of people who know me know that like I love plants. So I overshare about plants because it's something that I don't care that people know about me. Um uh what else? Oh, people know that like I like makeup and so I overshare about that. Like but those are like the two main things people know about me. They don't really there's a lot
Hmm.
of people who don't recognize that I have lots of other interests or I do lots of other things and I I don't do I mean Kim does this on purpose, but I recognize that like I don't do this on purpose. I didn't realize I was doing it until she said it and I was like, wow. And because it made me I'm going through a situation right now that's like that it's made me realize that that's probably the reason why in some relationships that I have I feel closer to someone than I actually am. And I don't realize that
Hmm.
I and the other person haven't opened up as much as we thought we did. And it's very much a false sense of closeness and for me I know it's not on purpose, but you know, it was just very interesting and I was like how did I develop that? Like how did I develop doing that cuz I didn't know I was doing that until it just like clicked for me and I was like wow, like that's crazy. So
Yeah, but I think it makes sense though, because if you think about it, like the two examples you gave, plants and makeup, it's so easy to talk about that stuff. And the more,
yeah.
I guess the easier it is to talk about that stuff, the less brain power you have to spend, trying to talk about stuff that's not easy to talk about, like, family
Yeah.
issues or relationship issues
Mhm.
or, you know, things like that. I
Yeah.
think. I think it really depends on the person. It's like how easy is it for them to just talk about anything. For me,
Fair.
I think I've gone through phases where it's felt easier to talk about things like my feelings and stuff than in other times. But yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I think it's just easier to resort to those things because they're easy to talk about, and you can feel a lot of conversation about those things, or you can.
Mhm.
If you talk about a certain plant, you can say, "Oh, this reminds me of something else," and then move on to something else that's
Yeah.
even easier to talk about. That sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I don't know. Yeah. I but yeah, if you ever don't want to actually really share your life with someone, like I feel like this is great for like if you're in the office or something and you're not really
Yes,
trying
yes.
to connect with a coworker and the typical um racist thing is to tell your black coworker that they're not hanging out with the team and they're not a team player because they
Mm.
don't hang out with the team outside of work even though we're supposed to be doing work shit at work, but whatever. And if you don't you don't want to like want people to really know you, but you want to give them that security of like, oh, like you think you know me, but you actually don't.
Hmm.
Overshare on something small that you
Hmm.
don't care about. Like, and because that's what a lot of Kim says, that's what she does. And I've also heard other like internet personalities say that too. And I was like, wow, that's because then it makes like these random people on the internet comfortable to tell you who you are. And it's like, you don't know me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just because I share certain things about my life doesn't mean that you know who I am, because you don't. Like, that's just a part of me. I'm very multifaceted. People are very multifaceted. So, yeah. I just found that very interesting, and that's what got me hot, because it had me thinking. So, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that's it for me. I guess it's the end of the episode. It's a very long one, guys. We're not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Yeah. No. I think it was a good a good intro, like you said, but I'm definitely looking forward because, this is like my favorite thing to talk about. I really tried to keep things at bay this time. I could have over explained for days, but I chose not to because I don't want people to be like, this bitch is annoying. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I am excited to keep talking about this stuff. And again, I really hope that we can do a follow-up episode soon and talk about things in more detail. We've been having meetings and talking about some of the things that we want to focus on for this year, and we have some good ideas, we think, for some content going forward. So really excited about that. But anyways, to wrap up here, as always, thank you so much for listening and joining us. And I do want to take a second to mention, again, our social media. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to us or suggest things, please make sure that you check out the show notes. We have our social media handles there. You can email us. We'll have our email in the description as well. Celeste told me to make sure that I mention that going forward. So I'm really trying to make sure I mention that.
Follow us.
Yeah, we have Instagram, we have YouTube, we have obviously our Gmail. Do we have Twitter? Yeah, we have Twitter. Even though I need to focus on the tweets more, but and still working on the website. We'll have that up soon for you. But again, as always, thank you for listening. This was the Slight Sarcasm Podcast. I'm Amber.
I'm Celeste.
And we will have you guys tune in next time.